We're now on Daf Pei Dalet Omen Pei. So I'm going to ask the following question. Ulu Rabbi Akiva Tfisa Lo Mahanya Klal. How far does Rabbi Akiva go over here? Would Rabbi Akiva at least recognize the validity of Tfisa, which means if the Baal Chov, or alternatively the Isha for Haksuva, would grab onto the Nechasim before the Yorshim would get a hold of these Nechasim, would it be logical that maybe Rabbi Akiva would agree in that case that Tfisa is meaningful? But we have to keep in mind that there's a difference between Tfisa b'chayav or Tfisa liachar misa. When Rabbi Akiva would hold that Inos Yorshe Abal, that's because the Tfisa was liachar misa. And immediately the Yorshim have that superior position in the inheritance because they don't need a shvuah. But could it be that Rabbi Akiva would concede that if during the lifetime of the, we'll call it the father/husband, there was a tfisa, that tfisa would be meaningful. Omar Rav Nachman, who shetafas nichayim, enochinami. We have a Kabbalah. That's why Rashi interprets it. A Kabbalah mirabosenu, that even Rabbi Akiva admits that tfisa is meaningful, but only if the tfisa is done michayim. So if the Baal Chov during the lifetime of the husband, father, the lova would grab onto the nechasim, then he's already muchsa. It's already during the lifetime of the lova muchsa bidei amalva. So you can't apply the principle of Rabbi Akiva that immediately with the death of the lova, the yarshim of the lova now possess these objects, and the objects and the properties are in their domain, in their possession. That's not so, because the Baal Chov already grabbed on to these nechasim during his lifetime. Now, this has to do with the laws of Shvuah, as Tosfos explains. I'm just going to read you the key line here. Kevan shemuchsak v'yomi v'nechasim v'chayv eino nikra boli par v'nichsa yisomim sharei parua v'omed v'lo tzarich Shvuah. What Rav is saying here is that although a boli par v'nichsa yisomim tzarich lishava, he has to take a Shvuah's nishba v'notel, and that puts him in an inferior position according to Rabbi Akiva's logic, but not in the case of Tafas Michayim. If it's Tafas Michayim, he's not a boli para. If you want to get the money out of his possession, you have to prove that he had no rights to these money. And the Gemara clarifies, Rabbi Tarfa the manchi heich. Now we get back to Rabbi Tarfa. Rabbi Tarfa holds that the Baal Chov or the Isha, even after the death of the lova or the husband, could grab onto these nechasim before the Yorshim get a hold of it. Where are these nechasim? Why are you telling me that the Yorshim were not zocha? Assuming that this property was in the possession of the father, or again the lova, during his lifetime, and then he died, then the Yorshim immediately will take over these nechasim. In order to justify Rabbi Tarfa, we have to assume that somehow the lova, actually the malva, I should say, or the isha, grabbed onto these nechasim before the Yerusha was the zechus of the Yorshim. So it must be that the possessions here, that the Baal Chov, the Isha grabbing onto, are not in the actual physical place where the kinyan of the Yorshim could effectuate itself. So where are they? And here we have a major machlokas. The reason why the Yorshim did not immediately, with the death of the Morish, of their father, achieve a tfisa on this estate, or for example, the payros that we spoke about before, it's because they're in the middle of Rishus Harabim. The Yisomim have not yet implemented and executed a kinyan on these objects, on these valuable objects, or on these payrolls with the death of their father, because how can they establish a tfisa and a kinyan through the halach of Yerusha if they're in Rishus Harabim? That's not a mokum or royal kinyan. So therefore the Balchov or the Isha can come and grab onto these payrolls. Aval b'simta. But according to Rav and Shmuel, if you have a simta which is called a keren zavas asmukushus Rabin, lo, Rabbi Tarfon would not say that tfisa is meaningful, is valid, because in this place you could be konev b'meshicha, and Yerusha, the Yorshim Azochin, these pairs immediately with the death of their father, if these payrolls are located, situated in a keren zavas asmukushus Rabin, so the Balchov and the Isha cannot make a tfisa in it. Rabbi Yochanan Reish Lakish Shavaya Filu B'Simta. The tfisa of the Balchova, the Isha, is meaningful and valid, even if the payrolls find themselves in a simta. Now again, I'm a little bit at loss here as to what the Yesod HaPlugta here is. It sounds to me that this machlok between Rav and Shmuel on the one hand and Shmuel and Rabbi Yochanan Reish Lakish on the other hand is really anchored in Masechet above Metzia. We're dealing with the status of a simta, which I think we had once before in Perkei Lunairis. I think we had it also in Ksubas. But so far, in my Gemara, there's no major note here about what is the machlokas about. So this sugya is now going to take a turn in a different direction with a bunch of stories and of Yochanan Reish Lakish, Rebbe and Talmud, and who's the Talmud of whom, and so forth and so on. Hopefully, by tomorrow, when we get to Pei, we'll have more of a grasp on this issue about simta. I'm hoping. So now the Gemara tells us the following story. Don Dayanik Rabbi Tarfon. The Dayanim, in a particular case where the Balchov took over the Metaltal and after the death of the Lover, paskin like Rabbi Tarfon. That kol hakodim zoch. So this is the case of the Mosar of the parents. Bahadre Reish Lakish moved to Minayu. Now Reish Lakish says, no, you have to cough it up. You have to give back to the Yarshim. We're going to pass them on Rabbi Akiva. And the Yarshim are considered Mufzakim. Normally Rabbi Yochanan turns Reish Lakish, Vasisa Kishel Torah. You've made Rabbi Akiva as if he was, halacha l'Moshe Sinai. Okay, we do pass Rabbi Akiva Michaveiro, if there's only one dissenting view, but it's not halacha psuka. It's not halacha l'Moshe Sinai. L'chatchila we should have passed him like Rabbi Akiva, but after the tfisa was implemented, now you're going to change, right? And no, I didn't say that right. Not only was the tfisa implemented, but the din was handed down by the dayanim based on Rabbi Tarfon, that we're not going to be choser the din. So again, l'chatchila, we should have passed him like Rabbi Akiva in favor of the Yorshim. But with the Eved, once the din was handed down, the verdict was handed down based on Rabbi Tarfon, we're not going to change. We're not going to upset it. It's not a local Moshe Sina. So Gemara says, Lema b'hakam mifli, shall we assume that the machlokas between Rabbi Yochanan and Reish Lakish revolves around the following principle. Mar Sav Reish Lakish holds Tav Dvar Mishnah Choser. We have something called a Dvar Mishnah. And the halacha Rabbi Akiva Michavero is a Dvar Mishnah. And if the Dayan paskin against that halacha, that ruling of halacha Rabbi Akiva Michavero, then he's a Tav Dvar Mishnah. And the halacha is we're mevatel the psak din. But Mar Savar, according to Rabbi Yochanan, Tav Dvar Mishnah no choser. Now this is impossible. we know that Tav Bidvar Mishnah is Choser. So what does it mean? Savar Tav Bidvar Mishnah Eno Choser. Now, I'm not sure who he's quoting here in this footnote, but he says, Dino Kedayan Shetav B'Shikul Adas. So this has to be taken under advisement. What's that Shikul Adas? He was Torah with our Mishnah. Well, the fast is getting to me now. Not the hunger, but the thirst. Where it says low, the Kuli Alma, both Rabbi Yochanan and Shlokish hold the Tov and Mishnah Choser. I mean, that's explicit in the Gemara in Sanhedrin. According to Rabbi Yochanan, although we generally pass like Rabbi Akiva against one single dissenting view, but not in the case where that dissenting view is the Rebbe. And the Gemara holds now that Rabbi Tarfon was the Rebbe of Rabbi Akiva. Marsa Reish Lakish holds that halacha afilu mirabo. We pass like Rabbi Akiva even against Rabbi Tarfon, even against his own Rebbe. And therefore, this is called Torah B'Dvar Mishnah, and it's Choser. Iboy say Mekuli Alma, look, Rabbi Akiva mechaver v'lo mirabo. But the question is, was Rabbi Tarfon in fact the Rebbe of Rabbi Akiva? Hakam if we Marsov comes Rabbi Yochanan, Rabbi Tarfon, but Marsov, but Rabbi Reish Lakish holds Chavero Hava. They were colleagues, and therefore, according to Reish Lakish, if they were colleagues, then we should paskin like Rabbi Akiva michavero, even against Rabbi Tarfon. They both agree, and Rabbi Yochanan agrees that Rabbi Tarfon is only a colleague of Rabbi Akiva. When we have a principle that Allah Rabbi Akiva michavero, what does that mean? Even to be choser the din? Rabbi Yochanan holds, no, it's only matin. We paskin like Rabbi Akiva. But if the dayan was machriya and he paskin against Rabbi Akiva, like for example in this case they paskin like Rabbi Tarfon, ein machzirin u'mevatlin asadin. Another story. Krevi Rabbi Yochanan tofus para the yasmi mi simta. The relatives of Rabbi Yochanan and this person who died owed them a chok, and they went in and grabbed the cow that was located in a simta in lieu of the debt that was owed to them by the father. Also, Rabbi Yochanan, they came from Rabbi Yochanan. They said, "Are we in the right? So you really have a good solid foot to stand on, because we pass like Rabbi Tarfon." Also, coming to Rabbi Reish Lakish, Reish Lakish says Zilu Ahadru. You got to cough it up. You have to return the para. Halach is like Rabbi Akiva, and Tfisa is not meaningful. Also, coming to Rabbi Yochanan, when they came back to Rabbi Yochanan, they said to him, "What are we going to do now? You said that we did the right thing, and that Tfisa is meaningful and valid, and now Reish Lakish wants to force us to return it." So Rabbi Yochanan responds, "My esa shekenegdi cholakalai." Kenegdi means shakul kenegdi. That Reish Lakish is as chashiv as I am, and I can't help you in this case. Now here we have a real problem, because okay, let's say that Reish Lakish is shakul kenegdo, but we're left with a suffix. I mean, we don't know if we accept Rabbi Yochanan and post facto we have to recognize the validity of the tefisa or not. So he writes in, "I do a lot you look tefisa be suffix." So he quotes the Marit that when there's a machlokes about the tefisa itself, whether you have rights to tefisa, then we're not going to say that tfisa is moel misafik. Right? Tfisa is moel misafik. If you have an independent suffix, then you went and you would tofes. But here the very root and source of the suffix is whether or not you have rights of tfisa. In such a case, tfisa can't be meaningful. Now, the Shach wrote a book on tfisa, which is called Takfa Cohen, and he rejects this ma'arif. So this is a subject for an Ian Shir. Another story. Ahu Bakara. Bakara, I think, is a roa with an ayin, right? A roa meaning a shepherd, the Yasmin. So he was appointed as the shepherd to protect the animals of these Yisomim. Now the Balchov of the father of these Yisomim, Tafse, Torah, meaning he grabs onto one of the animals. Torah is a shor. And the Balchov, he claims, Mechayim Tfisnale, I grabbed it when the father was still alive. Ubakara Omar, but the shepherd who's protecting the interest of the Yisomim, he claims the Achamisa Tafse. And we pass like Rabbi Akiva that Tfisa Achamisa is not meaningful. Also, the Talmid Rav Nachman, Omalei, Iloch Sahadi de Tafse. Rav Nachman turns to the row and he says, do you have Eidim to testify that this Balchov grabbed on to the shor? Because again, if there are no Eidim, then he can deny that he grabbed onto the shor. That would give him a migu. Amalei, so the Roas says to Rav Nachman, Lav, I have to admit, I don't have Eidim. Amalei, so Rav Nachman says that since the shor is now in the hands of the Balchov, after he grabbed it, and there are no Eidim that he grabbed it, is migu the yochel l'meimer lakuachu biyodi, is yochel nami l'meimer michayim tfisale. We're going to believe him to say that he grabbed onto it michayim, and we're holding like Rav, if you remember that even Rabbi Akiva agrees that if the tfisa michayim is meaningful, and the reason we believe him is because he could have said, lakuachi biyodi, I bought this shor. I didn't grab it from you. I purchased it from you. Now, this is all based on the premise that you can have a tfisa and a chazaka on an animal. And that's against the famous statement of Reish Lakish in Cheskes Avatim Nekojos Elem Chazaka. That animal, there's no such thing as chazaka on animals. You can't say, well, I'm holding on to the animal. There's a Marakama. We know that this animal belonged to Reuben. Now Shimon is holding it. Proves nothing. Why? Because it's Gojos. Gojos means animals move. They're animated. No, is that the word? Animate. They're animate, not animated. Animate. Sorry. So it means that the fact that you're holding on to this animal proves absolutely nothing because the animals move from one location to another. So therefore, the Gemara is raising the following objection. How can Rav Nachman say that this guy has a migu, this balcho, because he could have said lakuach biyadi? How can he say lakuach biyadi? I mean, we know that these animals move from one field to the other, and gojus elem chazaka. So you would not be believed to say lakuach biyadi. When it comes to animals, you have to have proof of purchase. And the Gemara says, "Shani Torah de Nesir Leroa." Shor is not a small animal, what's called a behema daka, but rather it's a behema gasa. And it's not like gojos. Gojos refers to small sheep. But we're talking now about a behema gasa. And a behema gasa doesn't just run around from one sada to the other, unless the roa, who's in charge of shmira, would bring it over. So we're not going to say that that this behema gasa, this shor, was just roaming through the wild over there, and this Baal Chov just grabbed onto it, and he has no possession. No, we're going to say he didn't find it, out there in the wild, but rather it was given to him by the roa, and therefore it was given to him by the roa. He's muksa, and chazaka kol mashutakas yodam shalom. Another story. the Bein Asiyah. We're talking about the members of the royal family. You know, the Dayanim were sort of afraid of them, and they went ahead. Tofas Amsa Diasmi Misitma. They grabbed on to the shivcha of the Yisomim, meaning after the death of the father. And where was the shivcha located at the moment of the death of the father? She was located in a simcha. And they claimed that the father owed them thousands of dollars, and we grabbed onto the shivcha with a tfisa of a balcho. Yosef Rabbi Avo, Rabbi Chanina Bar Papi, Rabbi Yitzchak Nafka, Yosef Rabbi Abu Gavayu. So Rabbi Abba says to these great scholars, Shaper Tafsiru. This was a valid feast on the part of the Bein Asiyah, meaning that the Yarshim did not establish their possession over the Shivcha because she was located in a Simcha. One second. So we had a machlokas before about whether tfisa is operative in a simta. Let's just see the next piece of Gemara if that's relevant. Amaluhu Rabbi Abba. Rabbi Abba says to Yonim, who had just validated the tfisa of the Bein Asiyah, Mishum de Bein Asiyah, you're afraid of the Beis Hanasi, and therefore Chanifa means like you flatter them, by paskening like them, even though the din is not like that. But don daini Rabbi Tarfon, right? The only way that you could possibly justify and validate the tfisa is if you pasken like Rabbi Tarfon, because the tfisa was liachar misa. So your dayanim would machriya halach like Rabbi Tarfon against Rabbi Akiva and validate the tfisa. Comes on Reish Lakish, and he undermines and reverses the psak din, and he forces them to return the money because we don't pass it like Rabbi Tarfon, we pass it like Rabbi Akiva. Another story. Yemer bar Choshu, have a masik bezuze ba'u gavra shofet. So somebody owed Yemer some money. He was the lova and Yemer was the malva, and he died. The lova died. The shavik arba, and he left a yacht. Amalei, Yemer appoints a shliach. And he tells him, Zil Tafsinila, grab onto the spina. Again, we're going to have all sugya next on Pehei about what it means to grab onto a spina. Zil Tafsin. The shliach went ahead and he grabbed onto the yacht in lieu of the loan that was owed to Yemer bar Choshu. Pagubei, Rav Huna Breder of Yeshua Mulei. You can't grab onto the spina on behalf of Yemer bar Choshu. Your situation is that of a tofes of alchov b'makom shekav lacheret. When there are other balichovos, no one could make a tfisa on behalf of one of the balichovos and appoint himself as a shliach or zach v'yodem shlo b'fanav at the loss of other to the deficit of the other balichovos. So by virtue of the fact that the shliach grabbed onto the spina on behalf of Yemer, you are doing so to the detriment of other balei chovos. The Omer of Yochanan, Tofis of Alchov, Mokum Shekav Lacherim, Lo Kana. It's not a valid tfisa. And therefore, Tafsu Inu. So who's the Inu here? These are the other Bali Chovos. I mean, we don't know the names or anything like that, but they went ahead and they made a tfisa. So they could make a tfisa, a valid tfisa, because they are the Bali Chovos themselves. The Shliach is already Tofis L'Bal Chov, and that tfisa is not meaningful. Okay, then, so here we are on Pehei Omid Aleph. On the top of Pehei Omid Aleph, and it's Hashem. We'll pick this up tomorrow. Have a meaningful fast.